Kill Shot, Binding Shot, Deadeye, and a few other abilities make it to marksmanship, giving us a more sniper feel than ever before. Is it enough though? We dabbled into marksmanship in the alpha, and although not the final version of the spec, let's take a look at what you will get so far and how it all works together. Hunter's Mark is now baseline, as in no longer a talent. Outside of that, no real change. It's still on the GCD, you still have to recast it constantly in AoE, although it barely helps with any AoE scenario outside a priority target you need to kill faster, so it's fine, I guess, since that is its initial purpose. Scare Beast is back from the graces of unpruning. It's clearly useful in questing, and so far we have 2 dungeons with beasts that can be problematic. So fearing them is a tool that can prove useful. The main issue with fears in dungeons apply here as well, where there's always a chance that the feared mob will run into another pack. That and Tranquil Shot is also part of the basic hunter kit, which means a lot more for marksmanship than other 2 specs that could get it from a pet anyway. Outside the normal uses, it could give marksmanship a good reason to be invited into Raging Keys whenever and if ever this affix will be available for mythic dungeons in Shadowlands. Kill Shot makes a return as well, and I always wondered why such an iconic ability was taken away. It's a pure execute ability that feels right at home with marksmanship, and even better with a new talent to go with it. The last ability to become baseline is Binding Shot. It complements the fantasy of hunters having all sorts of trick shots up their sleeves when it comes to utility, and especially for marksmanship works even better since you don't play with a pet, and having more control over the range at which you shoot from makes a lot of sense. Wild Spirits is the Ardenwald class ability, and you fire a pretty blue Wild Spirit in an area, placing wild marks on every enemy hit. As long as the spirit is active, all attacks you make on the marked targets cause spirits to hit them as well. The way it currently works on Alpha is that the targets need to stay in the AoE, and they don't get marks that stick to them if they go out, although that sounds to be way cooler. Also, the extra damage that they get hit by is procced per ability use and not per hit or per damage hit. For example, you proc 1 hit from the effect if you cast Aim Shot, and also 1 hit only with Rapid Fire, and not 1 per Rapid Fire shot. Outside of just raw AoE damage, this doesn't seem to do much more, and it's pretty disappointing as far as I'm concerned. It has no utility and is just a flashy AoE. Seeing as how Covenant abilities function universally, I would have liked and expected this to actually apply wild marks for 15 seconds that stay on the targets no matter where they go. Or if not, maybe make it so the damage proc happens per hit and not per ability cast. The damage can be lowered in exchange, of course, clearly, but this can promote and actually reward a multi-shot into trick shot playstyle or even barrage usage. It's a 2-minute cooldown after all, and as far as 2-minute cooldowns go that are strictly aimed at AoE, this actually seems to be underperforming, considering AoE has also been capped, and trying to make the most out of it won't do too much for marksmanship that has a long aim shot cast and rapid fire cast that could eat up a lot of that 15 window time frame. Not to mention that in single target it could probably be the most boring ability I have played with so far. Probably not going to make my hunter choose Ardenwald as a covenant based on the other entries on this list. Such entries such as Flayed Shot from the Venthyr Covenant. Now this is a cool ability to use. Not only is it cool, it actually has proper interactions with the spec if you pick the Deadeye talent, which we will talk about in a second. It's clearly aimed at single target, and seeing as how marksmanship prefers single target even more, and it makes perfect sense from a spec fantasy perspective, this could functionally be the best and coolest option when it comes to Covenant abilities. Resonating Arrow is the Kyrian counterpart, which is similar to Wild Spirits in its effect, only that it's actually good. You fire an arrow down that affects an area, and mobs in that area have a higher chance of being critically struck. This means that the effect applies to all things you do, not just per ability shot. You also get the added benefit of being able to shoot them from behind walls. But see, if you are going to design an ability that will affect mobs only in its area, make it have fewer restrictions. Too many for wild spirits, and resonating arrow is just a much better implementation of that if this is the effect you aim to get when choosing your covenant. Add to this the fact that it's on a much shorter cooldown, which benefits AoE abilities more, since you will want to take advantage of it in dungeons. And in dungeons, shorter cooldowns give you better damage consistency if you take into consideration that you cannot pull big anymore. And you cannot pull big anymore. The Necrolords come with Death Chakram. Currently, this can only be tested in torghast once it becomes available, but the tooltip can still serve to give us an idea of how this will function. Simply put, it's a focus generator on a 45-second cooldown that can bounce between enemies up to a total of 7 extra hits, each dealing damage and generating 3 focus. Each bounce increases its damage by 15%, which makes it worth it once you can get the full amount of bounces out. Since we cannot reliably test it, I don't know if we can bounce on the same target multiple times, since the number 7 plus the initial target actually rounds up to 8 potential total targets, which coincide with the 8 target cap in AoE. If that's true, then the usefulness of this is incredibly reduced, but likely it will be so that it hits the same target multiple times, making it an amazing addition for cleave scenarios, a known issue for marksmanship. There are a bunch of talent reworks and repositioned on the spreadsheet. Yeah, I'm not gonna call it a talent tree because it's not. No matter how much I wished and hoped that Shadowlands will come with a proper talent system and not pick 1 out of 3. It's not MMOE, Blizzard, and it's not WoWy either. Enough, we've been playing with this Diablo 3-like system and it worked for Diablo 3. Alright, focus, changes, marksmanship. There you go. Barrage has taken the place of the old volley on the second row, which keeps the theme of single target versus AoE versus explosive shot, the coolest option, yet still lackluster. Barrage, still in your final form, the dungeon puller. Barrage wasn't a good pick in the last couple of years, and making it compete with careful aim doesn't seem like the right direction for its design. This clearly can change with whatever number balance will come for its output, but realistically, not keeping my hopes high for this one. Chimera Shot replaces Hunter's Mark further down the list in a very lackluster implementation. Hopefully this is an oversight, but having Chimera Shot back to marksmanship where it was originally introduced doesn't obscure the fact that it's a shit implementation from its original iteration. Like, really? Shoots 2 arrows, one that does nature and the other one that does frost damage? Come on, man. At least for Beast Mastery it generates focus, and having it on MM, which is a much more focus-starved spec, and not generate focus seems like an unpruned ability for the sake of devs saying, hey, you wanted it back? Then there you go, we did our job. It cannot have its initial effect, clearly, since stings are no longer a mechanic, at least not for marksmanship. But have it do something, please. I don't know, maybe spread Hunter's Mark to a second target, maybe activate trick shots so in cleave scenarios you can actually cleave, because, you know, marksmanship cannot cleave on just 2 targets. And this is just me brainstorming for 37 seconds. Clearly things need to be balanced and simmed, but we aren't talking numbers here, but pure design. Moving on! Binding Shackles takes the place of Binding Shot and actually buffs the ability it replaced. Now when mobs break the shackles, they will deal 20% less damage to you for 8 seconds. This definitely feels like a solo world content type of ability or PvP ability, which is not bad, but clearly means it will have no place in raids and dungeons, maybe only arenas. 20% damage reduction is a lot to have to apply to your tank, so I see the point of it being limited to just you. And have it nerfed so it can be used for your tank to kite would just make it a lot more useful in, say, dungeons, but almost useless in outdoor content where marksmanship can suffer when questing without a pet. Replacing Barrage, you will get Deadeye, which is probably the coolest change yet. This gives your kill shot 2 charges and the faster recharge to your aim shot once you fire a kill shot. Pair this up with Flayed Shot from the Venthyr and you can really pump some single target damage out. Outside of that, this will turn the execute phases into super execute phases, where you will be firing more kill shots firstly, but more aim shots also. This is a properly designed talent that strengthens an aspect of your rotation to make it into an actual appealing choice. Good work, devs! I approve. Volley has been reworked and replaced piercing shot again, and this time it seems, at least in theory, to be the right way to implement it. And the right way to freaking design AoE cooldowns, man! It has 45 seconds on its recharge, and once you fire it, it only lasts for 6 seconds, and it is on the GCD, so realistically you could fire 2 aim shots or 1 and a rapid fire in its window depending on your haste. It has some nice burst potential in AoE, but the strength of it I feel will come from its duration, which right now seems to be a bit too short. But hey, it's alpha, right? The one awkward issue is that you will still generate precise shots with aim shots that you would otherwise consume with multi-shot. Now it's a question of ignoring them and just casting aim shot and rapid fire, although this could be used in cleave scenarios to get trick shots otherwise unobtainable due to the number of targets. Fundamentally, marksmanship doesn't feel too different from the BFA version, or at least different in any way. The basics are still there, and the loss of Azerite powers make it, if anything, a little bit less interesting. The new talent and abilities spread a bit of flavor into the spec, and the gear issues will probably be fixed in due time. Depending on the numbers balance, we could get some fun interactions though. Say you choose Bastion and the Kyrian for your Covenant. You can aim at getting Resonating Arrow into a volley round and finish with a barrage for some pretty sweet and decent AoE burst. Assuming barrage will deal more damage than a trick shot, aim shot, or rapid fire. There are a few ifs right now, and until we can test the numbers through some proper simming, it's hard to tell how good marksmanship will be with the ideal build. I would recommend you guys check the Trueshot Lodge Discord community for future marksmanship updates, which are bound to come once more people get their hands on the spec. And of course, a special shout out to our patrons, and thank you guys for supporting our content even more. We have a lot of cool surprises for you stored in the future, so your support is not going to go unrewarded. And if you are interested in what our Patreon system is and maybe what you can get as well, check the link down below. Thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you in the next one.